You open your eyes to a different kind of silence. The quality of light filtering through the oiled paper window has changed overnight. It is softer now, muted and diffused, as though the world outside has wrapped itself in cloth. You lie still for a moment beneath the heavy wool blankets and the bare skin that covers them, feeling the particular cold that comes with the first snow. A clean, bright cold that seems to sharpen the air itself. Slowly, you push back the layers of warmth and sit up on the edge of the wooden bed frame. The cabin floor is cold against your feet, even through thick wool socks. You reach for your boots, settling them on carefully, working the leather lacings with fingers that are stiff from sleep and the chill that has crept into the room during the night. The small cast iron stove in the corner still holds a few embers from the evening before, glowing faintly orange in the dim morning light. You stand and move to the window, your breath visible in small clouds. Through the translucent paper, you can see the soft blue-gray of early morning and the unmistakable brightness that means snow has fallen. When you unlatch the wooden shutter and push it open, cold air spills into the cabin and you see the world transformed. Snow covers everything. The clearing around your cabin wears a blanket of white, perhaps 6 inches deep, unmarked except for the delicate tracks of a rabbit that passed in the night. The pine trees that surround the clearing have become different creatures, their branches weighted down with snow, their dark green needles frosted white. Beyond them, the slope of the mountain rises into a sky that is pale and even, neither fully gray nor fully white. The kind of sky that promises more snow to come. In the quiet cold, you take this in. The first snow of the season is always a threshold, a crossing into a different kind of time. The autumn work of hunting and preserving, of gathering and storing, gives way now to the winter work of endurance, of maintaining, of the slow and careful husbanding of resources through the long, cold months ahead. You close the shutter gently and turn back to the warmth of the cabin. The stove needs tending. You open the iron door, and the embers brighten with the rush of air. Slowly, methodically, you add kindling. Small dry sticks you keep in a wooden box beside the stove, carefully split pieces of pine that catch quickly. When the flames begin to whisper and grow, you add larger pieces. Split logs of seasoned oak that will burn long and hot. As the fire builds, you move through the familiar motions of morning. There is water in the bucket by the door, though a thin skin of ice has formed on its surface overnight. You break through it with the tin dipper, pour water into the blackened kettle and set it on the stove to heat. While you wait, you dress in layers. A wool undershirt, then a heavier wool shirt over that. Then the leather vest you've worn smooth over years of use. The routine is soothing in its sameness, a pattern that requires no thought. The cabin around you is small but well made. You built it yourself 3 years ago, choosing this spot where a natural shelf in the mountain provides some shelter from the worst winds, where a spring runs cold and clear just 50 paces to the east, where the southern exposure means the winter sun will reach the clearing for a few precious hours each day. The walls are chinked tight with clay and moss. The roof is layered with bark and sod. It is one room, perhaps 12 feet by 14, with the bed in one corner, the stove in another, shelves along one wall, and hooks and pegs for tools and clothing along the others. The kettle begins to steam. You spoon coffee grounds into a tin pot, pour the hot water over them, and set the pot aside to steep. The smell of coffee fills the small space, mixing with the smell of wood smoke and wool and leather. the particular scent of a mountain cabin in winter. While the coffee steeps, you take stock of the morning. Outside, the snow continues to hold its silence. Inside, everything is as it should be. The fire burning steadily, the cabin warming slowly, the supplies you have laid in stacked and organized around you. On the shelves, sacks of cornmeal and flour, a tin of salt, dried beans in cloth bags, strips of venison hanging from the rafters, smoked fish wrapped in birch bark. In the corner, steel traps oiled and ready, coils of rope, an axe with its head wrapped in leather, a rifle cleaned and loaded, powder and shot stored in a tin box away from the heat. You pour coffee into a tin cup and hold it in both hands, feeling the warmth spread through your palms. Slowly, you drink, standing at the window, watching the snow. There is no hurry this morning. The first snow brings a kind of permission to move more slowly, to settle into a different rhythm. The urgency of autumn, the need to hunt, to preserve, to gather. Enough for winter has passed. Now there is only winter itself, stretching out ahead, a season measured not in days but in storms, in the depth of snow, in the slow lengthening of light that will not come for months yet. When the coffee is gone, you set the cup aside and reach for your outer clothes, the heavy wool coat, dark gray and worn soft at the elbows, the canvas trousers, reinforced at the knees and seat, the leather gloves lined with rabbit fur, the hat of beaver felt that sheds water and snow and keeps your head warm even in the coldest winds. You step outside into the snow. The air is utterly still. Your breath hangs in front of you in small clouds that disperse slowly. The snow beneath your boots makes a soft, creaking sound, dry and cold. You stand for a moment on the small covered porch that fronts the cabin, adjusting to the brightness, the cold, the particular quality of silence that comes with new snow. The clearing around the cabin is perhaps 40 paces across, irregularly shaped, bounded by the forest on all sides. You cut this space yourself, taking down trees carefully, using some for the cabin, some for firewood, leaving stumps that now wear caps of snow. To the east, the spring creates a small pool before it trickles away downhill. To the west, a path leads into the trees toward the creek where you set your trap lines. To the south, the clearing opens slightly, offering a view down the mountain slope toward the valley far below, though today the view is lost in cloud and falling snow that has begun again, soft flakes drifting down without wind. You move slowly across the clearing toward the woodshed, a lean-to structure built against the north side of the cabin. Your tracks are the first to mark the snow, a line of dark prints in the white. The woodshed is well stocked. You spent much of September and October cutting and splitting wood, laying in cord after cord of dry fuel. Oak and maple for long burning, pine for quick heat, cedar for the particular sweet smell it gives. The wood is stacked in neat rows, protected from snow and rain by the shed's sloping roof. You select several large pieces of oak, splitting them further with the axe you keep in the shed. Your movements unhurried and efficient. The axe rings clear in the cold air, and the wood splits cleanly, revealing pale heartwood that shows its age in tight-growth rings. You gather the pieces in the crook of your arm, enough to feed the stove for several hours, and carry them back to the cabin. Inside, the fire has taken the chill from the air. You stack the wood beside the stove, then settle into the rhythm of morning tasks. There is cornmeal mush to make, cooked slowly in a pot with water and a pinch of salt, stirred occasionally while it thickens. You eat it from a wooden bowl, standing at the window, watching the snow fall. The flakes are small and dry, the kind that will accumulate steadily. By nightfall, there may be another 6 inches, perhaps more. This is good. The early snow provides insulation for the ground, protection for the roots of plants, and the burrows of animals. It also means the streams will run full in spring, that there will be water enough for the growing season in the valley below. Here in the mountains, you think in these long cycles, winter snow becomes spring water, becomes summer. Grass becomes autumn. Harvest becomes winter again. After eating, you clean the bowl and pot, using cold water from the bucket and sand from a box you keep for this purpose. The routine is meditative, each action following the next, in an order established by practicality and habit. When the cleaning is done, you turn your attention to the work of the day. Winter preparation is never truly finished. There are always small tasks, repairs, improvements to be made. Today you decide to check the seams of the cabin walls to make sure the chinking has not loosened, to fill any gaps before the deep cold comes. You gather what you need: a bucket, a wooden paddle, clay from a sack, dry moss you collected in autumn, water to mix it all together. Outside again, you move slowly around the perimeter of the cabin, examining the spaces between the logs. The work is detailed and quiet. You mix small batches of clay and moss, working it to the right consistency, not too wet, not too dry, and press it into gaps with your fingers and the paddle. The cold makes the work harder, numbing your fingers even through gloves, but you take your time, doing it right. Each gap filled is protection gained, warmth preserved for the months ahead. As you work, you notice the details of the world around you, the way snow has drifted against the east wall of the cabin, sculpted by wind that must have blown in the night, though now the air is still. The tracks of a deer at the edge of the clearing, following the tree line south. The sound of a raven calling from somewhere in the forest, its voice harsh and clear in the quiet. Slowly, the morning passes. When you finish the north wall, you step back to examine your work, then move to the east wall and begin again. The repetition is soothing. Your hands know what to do without instruction from your mind. You let your thoughts drift, attending to the work, but also to the feel of cold air on your face, the smell of pine and snow, the weight of your body moving through space. By midday, you have worked your way around 3 walls. The 4th can wait for another day. You are not hurried. Winter is long, and there will be many days for such work. You clean your tools, storing them in the shed, then return to the cabin to warm yourself by the fire. Inside, you make tea from needles of spruce, gathered green and dried, now steeped in hot water to make a pale golden drink that tastes of the forest. You sip it slowly, sitting on the edge of the bed, feeling the warmth return to your fingers and toes. The cabin is quiet, except for the snap and whisper of the fire, the occasional settling of logs, the soft sound of snow against the window. In the afternoon, you turn to other tasks. There are snares to check, though you do not expect to find anything so soon after the snow. Still, you pull on your coat and hat and gloves and make your way into the forest, following a path you know by heart, even under its new covering of white. The forest in snow is a different place. The sounds are muffled, absorbed by the white blanket on the ground and the snow-weighted branches above. Your footsteps make soft, crunching sounds. Water drips from branches where the snow is melting in small amounts, though the air is cold enough that these drips will freeze again by nightfall. The light is dim and even, filtered through clouds and falling snow and the dense canopy of evergreens. You move slowly along the trap line, checking each snare in turn. They are empty, as expected, but you examine each one carefully, making sure the loops are properly set, that no branch has fallen to disturb them, that the small clearings where you've placed them are still accessible. This is maintenance work, the patient tending of tools and systems that will, over the course of winter, provide meat and furs. At the furthest snare, you pause to rest, standing quiet in the snow. Here the forest is thick with spruce and fir, and even in daylight it feels like dusk. You can hear the creek nearby, its voice changed by cold, the water running slower, ice forming at the edges. In a month or two, parts of it will freeze solid, and you will cut holes through the ice to reach water. But now it still runs free, dark against the white snow, speaking its continuous murmur to the trees. You stand and listen. There is a particular quality to silence in the forest that is not truly silence at all, but rather the absence of human sound. The forest is full of small noises. The settling of snow from branches, the distant call of a jay, the creak of trees in cold that contracts the wood, the whisper of air moving through needles. These sounds do not break the quiet, but rather define it, give it texture and depth. After a time, you turn back toward the cabin, retracing your steps through your own tracks. The snow is falling more heavily now, already beginning to fill in the trail you made on your way out. By morning, all trace of your passage will be erased, the snow smooth and unmarked again. Back at the cabin, you shed the outer layers of clothing, hanging them on pegs to dry. Your hands are cold despite the gloves, and you warm them at the stove before beginning to prepare the evening meal. There is venison from a deer you took a month ago, dried and salted, which you cut into small pieces and set to simmer in a pot with water, dried wild onions, and a handful of corn. The pot hangs from an iron hook above the fire, and you adjust it to hang at just the right height, where it will cook slowly without burning. While the stew cooks, you tend to small tasks. There are clothes to mend, a tear in a wool sock that needs darning, a button missing from a shirt. You work by the light of the fire and a single candle made from rendered bear fat. The sewing is slow, your large hands made clumsy by the fine work, but you persist. These small repairs matter. A sock with a hole becomes a blister. A shirt with missing buttons lets in cold. You learned long ago that survival in the mountains is not a matter of grand gestures, but of attention to detail, of maintaining what you have, of not letting small problems become large ones. The light outside fades gradually. There is no sudden sunset in this weather, only a slow darkening, the white snow turning blue and then gray as night comes on. You light a second candle and set it on the shelf, doubling the warm, flickering light in the cabin. The stew bubbles quietly, filling the small space with the smell of cooking meat and onions. When the food is ready, you ladle it into a bowl and eat slowly, sitting at the small table you built from split planks. The venison is tender from long cooking, the broth rich and warming. You eat all of it, sopping up the last of the liquid with a piece of cornbread you made 2 days ago, now slightly stale but still good. After eating, you sit for a while, simply being still. The day's work has left you pleasantly tired, the kind of tiredness that comes from physical labor in cold air, from steady movement and attention. Outside, the snow continues to fall through the darkness. Inside, the fire burns low, casting shifting shadows on the log walls. You think about the season ahead. December is just beginning. By January, the snow will be measured in feet rather than inches. February will bring the coldest temperatures, nights when the air itself seems to freeze. when the stars are sharp and bright in a black sky, when wolves howl in the far distance. March will offer the first hints of change, days when the sun climbs slightly higher, when icicles drip in the afternoon warmth before freezing again at night. But these months are still ahead. For now, there is tonight and tomorrow, and the steady accumulation of days. You have food enough, fuel enough, shelter enough. The work of each day will be the work of maintaining these things, of attending to details, of moving through the slow rhythm of winter. You add wood to the fire, making sure it will burn through the night. Then you pull off your boots, your outer clothes, and slip beneath the blankets on the bed. The cabin is warm now, the air comfortable. Through the window, you can see the darkness and the pale shapes of snow-covered trees catching what little light remains. Sleep comes easily, as it always does after a day of work in cold air. Your last waking thought is of the snow falling softly, accumulating in silence, covering the mountain in its yearly transformation. You wake before dawn, as is your habit. The cabin is cooler now, the fire burned down to embers again, but not uncomfortably cold. You lie still for a moment, listening. The snow has stopped. You can tell by the quality of the silence, which is complete now, absolute. During the night, the storm passed on, leaving the world quiet and still. Slowly, you rise and begin the morning routine again. The fire is fed and brought back to life. Water is set to heat. Coffee is made. You dress in layers, pull on your boots, and step outside into the darkness before dawn. The cold takes your breath. The temperature has dropped sharply with the clearing of the clouds, and the air seems to burn in your lungs. Above, stars are visible, bright and hard in the black sky. The Big Dipper hangs low in the north. Orion is rising in the east, his belt unmistakable. The new snow is deep now, perhaps a foot or more. It has transformed everything. The trees are weighted down, boughs bent low. The clearing is a smooth expanse of white, broken only by the dark shape of the cabin and the woodshed. Your breath rises in white plumes that glow faintly in the starlight. You stand on the porch, feeling the cold settle around you, feeling your body respond to it, muscles tensing slightly, blood drawing inward to protect the core. This is the edge of what humans can endure, here in the high mountains in winter. You are equipped for it. Layers of wool and leather, a tight cabin, fire and food. But even so, the cold is a presence, a force that must be respected and accommodated. As you watch, the eastern horizon begins to pale. The stars fade gradually. The sky turns from black to deep blue, then to a pale blue, streaked with pink and gold. The snow catches this changing light, reflecting it, brightening from gray to white, to a pink-tinged brilliance as the sun approaches the horizon. You wait for it, standing still in the cold, watching the daily transformation. This is one of the reasons you live here in this hard place. For moments like this, when the world reveals its beauty without human interference, when you can stand as witness to the turning of light, the cycle of day and night, the simple fact of sunrise. The sun breaks the horizon, and the mountains are suddenly illuminated. The snow blazes white and gold. The trees cast long blue shadows. The air itself seems to brighten, though it remains bitterly cold. You squint against the brilliance, feeling the first touch of direct sunlight on your face, a warmth that is more psychological than physical, but welcome nonetheless. When the sun is fully risen, you turn back to the cabin and the work of the day. There is always work. Today, you decide to take inventory of your supplies, to make sure everything is accounted for, to plan the weeks ahead. When the sun is fully risen, you turn back to the cabin and the work of the day. There is always work. Today you decide to take inventory of your supplies to make sure everything is accounted for, to plan the weeks ahead. Inside you move systematically through your stores. The sacks of cornmeal and flour, the bags of beans, the salt and sugar, the coffee. You count what you have, calculate how much you use each day, figure how long it will last. The mathematics of survival are simple but unforgiving. If you run out of food before spring, there will be little to hunt, and the journey to the nearest settlement would be impossible through deep snow. So, you count carefully, allowing a margin of safety, planning for the possibility that winter might last longer than expected. The inventory takes most of the morning. When you are satisfied that everything is in order, you turn to the task of organizing your furs. You have pelts from last winter's trapping, beaver, marten, fox, wolf, that need to be sorted, the best ones set aside for trading when spring comes, the others kept for your own use. You spread them out on the floor and examine each one carefully, checking for damage, for places where moths might have gotten to them, for any sign of deterioration. The furs are in good condition. You fold them carefully and stack them in a corner, wrapped in canvas to protect them from dust and insects. These pelts represent months of work. Cold mornings checking trap lines, careful skinning and stretching and curing. In spring, you will carry them down the mountain to the trading post in the valley, where they will be exchanged for things you cannot make yourself. Powder and shot, coffee and sugar, needles and thread, perhaps a new axe head or a steel trap to replace one that has broken. But spring is far away. For now there is only winter and the slow, careful work of enduring it. In the afternoon, you go out again to cut wood. This is work you do regularly, a little each day, making sure the supply never runs low. You wade through the deep snow to a stand of dead trees at the edge of the clearing. Pine that was killed by beetles several years ago, now dried and perfect for burning. The saw makes a rhythmic sound as you work, a back and forth whisper of steel teeth cutting through wood. You cut the tree into lengths you can carry, then split the lengths into pieces that will fit in the stove. The work is hard, and despite the cold, you begin to sweat beneath your layers of clothing. Steam rises from your shoulders, your breath comes harder. When you have cut enough for several days, you stack it on a sled, a simple contraption of split boards lashed together, and drag it back to the cabin. The runners cut through the snow with a soft shushing sound. At the woodshed, you unload the pieces and stack them carefully. The smaller pieces in front for easy access, the larger pieces behind. By now, the short winter day is fading. The sun, which never climbed very high, is already dropping toward the western peaks. The shadows lengthen and turn blue. The temperature begins to fall again, the brief warmth of midday giving way to the deeper cold of evening. You return to the cabin and build up the fire. There is bread to make for the coming days. You mix cornmeal and flour with water and a pinch of salt, working it into a stiff dough that you shape into flat rounds and cook on the iron griddle over the fire. The smell of baking cornbread fills the cabin. You cook half a dozen rounds, setting them aside to cool, knowing they will last you several days. For dinner, there is more venison stew, this time with dried wild turnips added for substance. You eat slowly, savoring the warmth and flavor, watching through the window as darkness falls completely and stars begin to appear in the clear, cold sky. After eating, you sit by the fire and work on a new pair of snowshoes. You have been making them slowly over several weeks, bending ash wood into frames, lashing the frames with sinew, weaving the centers with strips of rawhide. It is detailed work that requires good light and patience. Tonight, you work on the weaving, your fingers slowly pulling the rawhide tight, creating the diamond pattern that will support your weight on deep snow. The work is meditative. Your hands move in patterns they have learned over years. Your mind wanders, thinking of nothing in particular, or thinking of small things, the sound of wind in pine trees, the taste of cold water from the spring, the way morning light angles through the cabin window. Outside, the temperature continues to drop. The logs of the cabin contract with small, creaking sounds. Ice forms on the inside of the window where moisture from your breath has condensed. The fire burns steadily, keeping the cold at bay. Outside, the temperature continues to drop. The logs of the cabin contract with small, creaking sounds. Ice forms on the inside of the window where moisture from your breath has condensed. The fire burns steadily, keeping the cold at bay. When your eyes grow tired from the clothes work, you set the snowshoes aside and prepare for sleep. The routine is the same as the night before, and the night before that, a pattern that gives structure to the days. You bank the fire so it will burn slowly through the night. You pull off your outer layers of clothing. You slip beneath the blankets and the bearskin, feeling your body heat begin to warm the cocoon of bedding. Sleep comes, and with it dreams of snow, of endless white expanses, of silence and cold and the slow turning of seasons. Days pass in this rhythm. You wake, tend the fire, eat, work, eat again, work more, eat a final time, sleep. The work changes from day to day but follows patterns. Some days you check the trap lines, finding occasionally a rabbit or marten, which you skin and prepare, adding the meat to your stores, stretching the pelts to dry. Some days you cut wood, or haul water, or mend clothes, or make repairs to the cabin or your tools. More snow comes, storm after storm, until the accumulation around the cabin reaches above your knees, then above your waist. You dig paths through it, from the cabin to the woodshed, from the cabin to the spring, from the cabin to the edge of the clearing, where the trail into the forest begins. These paths become trenches with walls of white on either side, and after each new snowfall, you must dig them out again. The snowshoes you have been making are finished now, and you wear them when you venture farther from the cabin. They distribute your weight, so you walk on top of the snow, rather than sinking through it. The motion of walking in snowshoes is different from normal walking. A wider stance, a slight waddle, a careful placement of each step. But it allows you to move through the winter landscape, to check the distant trap lines, to explore the frozen forest. On a morning when the sky is clear and the sun bright, you decide to walk to the ridge above the cabin. It is a climb of perhaps an hour, gaining maybe 500 feet in elevation. You dress warmly, pack some cornbread and dried meat in a pouch, and set out after breakfast. The forest is silent, except for the creak of your snowshoes and the sound of your breathing. The snow is deep here, and even with snowshoes, each step requires effort. You move slowly, steadily, pacing yourself, stopping occasionally to rest and look around. The trees are magnificent in their winter covering. Each branch, each needle, carries its burden of snow. In places where sunlight breaks through the canopy, the snow glitters with a million tiny crystals of ice. The air is so cold, it seems to crack, and your breath freezes on your beard and mustache, forming ice that catches the light. You climb higher, following the contour of the land, moving through stands of old-growth timber, huge spruces and firs with trunks as wide as your outstretched arms. trees that were old before you were born, that will be old long after you are gone. There is something humbling about moving through such a forest, something that puts human time into perspective, that reminds you of your small place in the longer story of this mountain. After perhaps an hour of climbing, you reach the ridge. The trees thin here, and suddenly you can see out over the valley below. The view stops you in your tracks. The valley stretches away to the south and east, a vast expanse of white marked by the dark lines of rivers and the darker patches of forest. Beyond the valley, more mountains rise, peak after peak, each one snow-covered, extending to the horizon in waves of white and gray and blue. The sky above is pale and clear, and the sun, though low in the southern sky, illuminates everything with a clean, bright light. You stand and look, breathing hard from the climb, feeling the cold air in your lungs. This is why you are here. Not just for the solitude, not just for the challenge of surviving in this hard place, but for moments like this, when the world reveals itself in its winter beauty, when you can stand at the edge of everything and simply see. You stay for a long time, sitting on a rock you clear of snow, eating the cornbread and meat you brought, drinking from a canteen of water that has not yet frozen. The silence is complete. No bird calls. No wind stirs the trees. It is as though the whole world is holding its breath, waiting. Eventually, the cold begins to work through your layers of clothing, and you know it is time to descend. You rise, brush snow from your pants, and begin the walk back down. The return is easier, following your own trail, letting gravity help. Back at the cabin in the late afternoon, you build up the fire and warm yourself thoroughly. Your face is wind-burned, your hands and feet cold despite gloves and boots. But inside, you feel a deep satisfaction, the kind that comes from moving through the landscape under your own power, from seeing what there is to see, from being fully present in this place and time. The evening routine unfolds as always. Food is prepared and eaten. The fire is tended. Small tasks are completed. Night falls, and you sit by candlelight, working on a new project. A wooden bowl you are carving from a section of maple burl. The wood is dense and beautiful, with swirling grain that catches the light. You work it slowly with a curved knife, removing small shavings, revealing the form hidden within. Outside, the temperature drops again. The coldest part of winter is approaching. You can feel it in the way the cold penetrates, in the way the fire seems to give less warmth, in the way moisture freezes instantly on any surface. These will be the testing weeks, when the mercury drops far below zero, when the wind blows down from the highest peaks, bringing cold that seems absolute. But you are ready. The cabin is tight. The wood is stacked deep. The food will last. You have lived through winters like this before. You know what to expect, know how to endure. It is a matter of patience, of maintaining routines, of not taking risks, of respecting the cold and the snow and the isolation. Days shorten further. The sun rises late and sets early, and even at midday it barely climbs above the southern horizon. The cabin is dim during the day, and you burn candles more often, hoarding them carefully, knowing they must last. You spend more time inside now, doing indoor work. There are tools to repair, clothes to mend, leather to work, wood to carve. You read the few books you have, a Bible, a collection of Shakespeare's plays, a volume of Wordsworth's poetry, reading slowly, rationally, making them last. The words take on new meaning in this context, read by candlelight in a cabin deep in the mountains where every line about nature, about solitude, about the human condition resonates with your own experience. Sometimes in the evenings, you simply sit and think, or let your mind drift without direction. There is luxury in this, in time that is not structured, in hours that unfold without agenda. In the world below, in the settlements and towns, people are always rushing, always busy. Here, time moves differently. An hour is an hour, marked by the burning of candle or the feeding of fire, but it is not hurried. There is no need for hurry. Everything that needs to be done can be done slowly, carefully, well. More snow falls. The accumulation around the cabin reaches above your chest in places where it has drifted. You dig new paths, maintain old ones, keep the passage to the woodshed and the spring clear. This is constant work, the price of staying in one place during winter rather than moving with the seasons as animals do. One morning, you wake to find the temperature has plummeted. Your breath inside the cabin is white even with the fire burning. The water bucket has a thick layer of ice. When you open the cabin door to check the outside thermometer, a simple device with markings you've calibrated against known temperatures, you see it reads 20 degrees below zero. This is the deep cold, the kind that can kill if you are not careful. You dress in every layer you have before stepping outside even briefly. The air seems to burn your face where it is exposed. Your eyes water and the tears freeze on your cheeks. Breathing is difficult, each inhalation sharp and painful. You work quickly, bringing in extra wood, checking that the woodshed is accessible, making sure the path to the spring is clear. The spring itself is partially frozen, but water still flows in the center, black against white ice. You break through the ice at the edge and fill your buckets, hurrying back to the cabin before the water can begin to freeze. Inside again, you strip off the outer layers and huddle by the stove. Your hands and feet ache as they warm, the pain of returning circulation. You know this is dangerous cold, the kind where frostbite can happen in minutes, where exposed skin freezes solid. You resolve to stay inside except for essential tasks until the temperature moderates. The day passes slowly. You feed the fire constantly, keeping the cabin as warm as possible. Even so, the cold seeps in. The walls frost on the inside. The windows are completely covered with ice crystals in fantastic patterns, ferns and feathers and flowers of ice. Beautiful, but ominous. You hang blankets over the windows to add insulation, and the cabin becomes darker, more cave-like. You eat sparingly, trying to conserve supplies, but making sure to eat enough to keep your body generating heat. You drink tea constantly. Spruce needle tea, which is all you have, but it is hot, and that is what matters. You wrap yourself in blankets and sit as close to the stove as is safe, reading, carving, thinking, sometimes simply staring at the flames. Night comes, and with it, you expect the temperature to drop even further. You build the fire high before bed, knowing you will need to wake in the night to feed it. You pile on every blanket you have, every scrap of fur, and burrow into the warmth, trying to preserve heat. Sleep is fitful. You wake several times to add wood to the fire, moving quickly in the bitter cold of the cabin's interior, then diving back beneath the blankets. Each time you wake, you listen to the world outside. In the extreme cold, the trees crack and pop like gunshots as their sap freezes and expands. The cabin itself groans and creaks as the logs contract. It is an eerie symphony, the sound of the landscape responding to cold beyond human comfort. Morning comes slowly, the darkness reluctant to give way to light. When you finally rise and check the thermometer, it reads 30 below. This is as cold as you have ever experienced here. You understand now that you are at the mercy of forces beyond your control. All you can do is maintain the fire. Stay warm, wait. The day passes like the one before. Fire, food, warmth, waiting. You think about the animals outside, how they survive this cold. The deer will be yarded up in thick cover, standing still to conserve energy. The rabbits will stay in their burrows. The birds, what few remain, will be fluffed up in whatever shelter they can find. Everything, every living thing is focused on the same simple goal: survival. By evening, the temperature has risen slightly, only to 20 below, and this feels almost warm by comparison. The next day it rises further, to 10 below, then to 0, then to 10 above. The cold snap breaks, and the world seems to exhale. You venture outside again, properly clothed, moving carefully. The snow squeaks beneath your boots with a particular sound that only comes at very cold temperatures. Your breath rises in huge plumes, but it is bearable now, survivable. You check the trap lines and find a frozen rabbit, which you bring back and hang in the woodshed to thaw slowly. Life returns to its winter rhythm. Days pass. More snow falls, covering the paths you must dig out again. The sun begins its slow return toward the north, rising slightly earlier each morning, setting slightly later each evening. The change is imperceptible from day to day, but over weeks it accumulates. By late January, there is perhaps 15 minutes more daylight than there was at the solstice. You mark time by these changes: the angle of sunlight through the window, the position of stars at nightfall, the depth of snow, the amount of wood remaining in the shed, the level of supplies in the cabin. All of these are measures of winter's progress, signs that can be read by someone who knows how to look. The work continues day after day: wood to cut and carry, water to fetch and melt, food to prepare, tools to maintain, the cabin to keep warm and tight, your own body to keep fed and rested and functional. It is not dramatic work, but it is essential, and it fills the hours. On clear nights, you step outside to look at the stars. The winter sky is spectacular here, far from any light pollution, at high elevation where the air is thin and clear. The Milky Way is a river of light across the darkness. You can see planets: Venus bright in the west after sunset, Mars red in the east, Jupiter and Saturn when they are above the horizon. You watch for meteors and sometimes see them, bright streaks across the blackness. These moments of wonder are part of why you endure the hardship. To stand beneath such a sky, to see the universe displayed in its vastness, to feel your small place within it. This is a kind of wealth that cannot be measured in material terms. Back inside, you return to the fire and the candlelight, to the small warm space you have carved out of the wilderness. You work on your projects, read your books, think your thoughts. The cabin creaks and settles. The fire whispers. Outside, the cold continues. The snow continues. Winter continues in its slow procession toward spring. The wind picks up outside, rattling the shutters slightly. You add wood to the fire, watching the flames grow. The light flickers on the log walls, casting moving shadows. You settle into your chair, a blanket across your lap, and pick up the wooden bowl you have been carving. The knife moves through the wood in small, controlled cuts, removing tiny shavings that curl and fall. Slowly, the form emerges, smooth and round and pleasing to the hand. Outside, the winter night deepens. Inside, the fire burns on. This is enough. This is everything. The simple act of being here, of attending to small tasks, of enduring and persisting through the cold, dark months. Tomorrow, there will be more wood to cut, more water to carry, more small repairs and maintenance. The day after that, the same. And the day after that. But for now, there is only this moment. The warmth of the fire, the feel of wood beneath your fingers, the quiet satisfaction of work being done slowly and well. You kneel before the cast-iron stove as evening approaches, watching the flames through the small opening in its door. The fire has been burning since morning, fed steadily throughout the day, and now it settles into the particular rhythm of evening, a steady, purposeful burn that will carry through the coming night. The light outside has faded to deep blue. Through the small window, you can see the shapes of snow-covered pines becoming indistinct, merging with the darkness. The temperature is dropping rapidly, as it does every night in the mountains, and you can hear the subtle creaking of the cabin's logs as they contract in the cold. By the firelight, you select pieces of oak from the woodpile beside the stove. These are the logs you split yesterday, aged and dry, dense with stored energy. Each piece is perhaps 8 inches in diameter, cut to a length that fits the stove's firebox perfectly. You've learned through winters of experience exactly which wood to burn at which time. Pine in the morning for quick heat, maple during the day for steady warmth, oak in the evening for long, sustained burning. You open the stove door wider, and heat washes over your face. The interior glows orange and red, the coals from the day's burning forming a bed of intense heat. Slowly, carefully, you place the first piece of oak onto these coals, positioning it so air can flow beneath and around it. Then a second piece, and a third, building a structure that will burn efficiently for hours. The wood catches almost immediately, the heat sufficient to ignite it without flame. You watch for a moment as small tongues of fire begin to lick along the bark, as the wood starts to release its stored sunlight in the form of heat and light. Then you close the door, adjusting the damper to control the flow of air, finding the exact position where the fire will burn, neither too hot nor too cool, but steady and even through the night. In the still cabin, this task of tending the fire is perhaps the most important of all your routines. The fire is life in winter. It provides warmth that keeps the cold at bay, heat for cooking, light when darkness falls early, and comfort, the simple, profound comfort of flame and warmth in a cold world. You never take it for granted. You attend to it as you might attend to a living thing, with care and respect and constant vigilance. You rise from your knees and move to the small table where your evening meal awaits preparation. Outside, the wind has begun to stir, a gentle sound at first, the whisper of air moving through pine branches. You pause to listen, noting the direction, from the north tonight, which often means colder temperatures ahead, and the strength, which is moderate for now but may build as the night progresses. The table holds simple provisions: a wooden bowl containing cornmeal, a smaller bowl with salt, a piece of salt pork wrapped in cloth, a pot of water you drew from the spring this afternoon, now room temperature. These ingredients will become your supper, transformed by heat and time into sustenance. You measure cornmeal into a cast-iron pot, adding water, a pinch of salt, and small pieces of the salt pork cut thin with your knife. The proportions are automatic now, requiring no thought. 3 handfuls of meal, water to cover, salt to taste, enough pork to flavor the mush without depleting your stores too quickly. You learn these measurements through trial and error during your first winter here, and now Your hands know them without instruction from your mind. The pot goes onto the stovetop, settling with a solid sound of iron on iron. The bottom of the pot, blackened from years of use, begins to heat immediately. You stir the mixture with a wooden spoon, keeping it moving to prevent sticking, watching as the water begins to warm and the cornmeal starts to absorb liquid and swell. By the firelight, the interior of the cabin takes on a warm glow. The log walls seem to radiate a gentle golden light. Shadows shift and move with the flickering of the flames. Your few possessions, the bed in the corner, the shelves along one wall, the pegs holding clothes and tools, the rifle above the door, all become softer, more intimate in this light. You continue stirring, adding more water as the cornmeal thickens, adjusting the pot's position on the stove to find the right amount of heat. Too hot, and it will scorch. Too cool, and it will take forever to cook. The right temperature produces a gentle bubbling, a slow transformation of raw ingredients into food. While the mush cooks, you turn to other tasks. There is always work to be done in the evening hours, small tasks that fill the time between supper and sleep. Tonight, you notice that your leather gloves, damp from the day's work in the snow, need drying. You retrieve them from the peg where they hang and examine them in the firelight. The leather is stiff with cold and moisture, the fur lining compressed and wet. If left like this overnight, they will freeze solid and be useless tomorrow. You need to dry them, but carefully. Too close to the fire, and the leather will crack and harden. Too far away, and they won't dry at all. You fashion a simple drying rack from a piece of wire, bending it into shape and suspending it from a nail driven into the wall near the stove. The gloves hang from this wire, close enough to the heat to dry, but not so close that they'll be damaged. You can see steam beginning to rise from them already, the moisture evaporating in the warm air. In the still cabin, you return to the cornmeal mush, stirring it again, checking its consistency. It has thickened nicely, the individual grains of meal swollen and soft, the salt pork pieces tender and releasing their fat into the mixture. You adjust the pot slightly, moving it to a cooler part of the stovetop where it can finish cooking without your constant attention. While the food completes its cooking, you attend to your boots. Like the gloves, they are damp from walking through snow, and they too need care. You unlace them slowly, loosening the leather thongs that have frozen slightly at their ends, pulling the boots from your feet. Your wool socks are damp as well, wet at the toes and heels where moisture has seeped through. You peel off the socks and hang them near the gloves. Your bare feet feel the coolness of the cabin floor, a reminder of how much warmth the fire provides, how cold it would be without it. You flex your toes, encouraging circulation, then retrieve a dry pair of socks from your supplies. Thick wool, hand-knit, warm and soft. The boots themselves require more attention. You stuff them with dry grass you collected in autumn for this purpose, packing the grass loosely inside to help them hold their shape while drying and to absorb moisture from the interior. Then, you set them near the stove, but not too near, where they can dry overnight. The leather needs to breathe, to release its moisture slowly. Tomorrow you will oil them with rendered fat, keeping the leather supple and waterproof. By the firelight, these tasks take on a meditative quality. Your hands move through motions they have performed hundreds of times. There is no hurry, no urgency. Each action is complete in itself. The hanging of wet socks, the stuffing of boots with grass, the stirring of cornmeal mush. The routine is soothing, a pattern that gives structure to the evening. The mush is ready now. You ladle it into a wooden bowl, the steam rising in the cool air of the cabin. The smell is simple but good. Corn and salt and pork fat, the elemental smells of sustenance. You carry the bowl to the table and sit on the wooden chair you built your first autumn here. You eat slowly, savoring each spoonful. The mush is hot and thick, coating your mouth and throat with warmth. The bits of salt pork are tender and flavorful. This is not fancy food, not the kind of meal you might have in a town or settlement, but it is good, nourishing and warm and satisfying in the way that food should be when you've worked all day in the cold. Outside, the wind has picked up slightly. You can hear it now, a steady rushing sound as it moves through the forest. Occasionally, a stronger gust makes the cabin shudder slightly, makes the fire in the stove draw harder, makes the flames dance and shift. But inside, you are protected. The walls are solid, the roof is tight, the fire burns steadily. The wind is something to notice, to be aware of, but not to fear. You finish the mush and set the bowl aside to be cleaned later. For now, you want to sit and let the food settle. Let your body absorb the warmth and energy. You pour yourself a cup of spruce needle tea from the pot that sits always on the back of the stove, the needles steeped golden and fragrant. The tea is hot and slightly bitter, tasting of the forest, and it warms you from within. In the still cabin, you can hear small sounds, the crackle and snap of burning wood, the settling of the stove as metal expands and contracts with heat, the tick of ice forming on the window where moisture from your breath has condensed and frozen. These sounds are familiar, comforting, the voice of the cabin speaking its evening language. After a time, you rise and move to the shelves where you keep your tools and equipment. Tonight, there is mending to be done. Your canvas trousers, the ones you wear for heavy work, have developed a tear along one seam. It's a small tear now, but if left unattended, it will grow. And in winter, a tear in your clothes can mean the difference between comfort and cold, between safety and risk. You gather what you need: the trousers, a needle, thread made from sinew, your knife. You carry these to the chair near the stove, where the light is best, and settle in to work. By the firelight, threading the needle is a test of patience. The sinew thread is strong but not uniform, and the eye of the needle is small. You wet the end of the thread between your lips, twist it to a point, and carefully work it through the eye. It takes several attempts, but you are patient. Rushing leads to frustration, and there is no need to rush. When the needle is threaded, you examine the tear in the trousers. It runs for perhaps 3 inches along a seam where the fabric has worn thin. You position the edges of the tear together, matching them carefully, and begin to stitch. The work is slow and precise. Each stitch must be tight enough to hold, but not so tight that it puckers the fabric. The sinew thread is strong and will last, but it must be worked carefully. You push the needle through the heavy canvas, pull it through, position the next stitch, repeat. The rhythm is soothing. Push, pull, position, repeat. As you work, your mind wanders gently, not thinking of anything in particular but aware of everything around you. The warmth of the fire on your left side, the play of light and shadow on the cabin walls, the sound of wind outside, sometimes louder, sometimes softer as it gusts and calms, the feel of canvas and sinew between your fingers, the small ache in your shoulders from the day's work of cutting wood. The repair takes perhaps half an hour. When it's complete, you examine your work, testing the seam with your fingers, pulling gently to make sure it will hold. The stitching is even and strong. The tear is closed. These trousers will last another season, perhaps two, before they need to be replaced. You fold the trousers and set them aside, then rise to check the fire. This is something you do regularly throughout the evening, a constant attendance to the source of heat and life. You open the stove door and look inside. The oak logs have burned down somewhat, the flames smaller now, but there is still substantial fuel, and the coals beneath glow intensely. You add one more piece of oak, placing it carefully, then close the door and adjust the damper slightly, reducing the airflow to slow the burn rate. This fire will need to last through the night, and you want it to burn slowly and steadily rather than hot and fast. In the still cabin, the temperature is comfortable now. The stove has been burning all day, and the logs of the walls have absorbed heat, radiating it back into the space. Even several feet from the stove, the air is warm enough that you can work without your outer layers. Your wool shirt and pants are sufficient. You return to your chair and take up another task, sharpening your knife. The blade is a tool you use constantly, for everything from cutting food to working leather to carving wood. It must be kept sharp, and regular maintenance is easier than trying to restore an edge once it's been allowed to become too dull. You retrieve your whetstone from the shelf, a rectangular piece of fine-grained stone that you keep oiled for this purpose. You settle the stone on your lap, angling it to catch the firelight, and begin to work the blade against it in long, smooth strokes. The sound is rhythmic and pleasant, a soft shussing as steel slides over stone. You work one side of the blade, then the other, maintaining the angle that gives the best edge. The work requires attention, but not intense concentration. Your hands know what to do, and you can let your mind rest while your body works. By the firelight, you can see the edge of the blade catching the light as it grows sharper. Small metal filings accumulate on the stone, evidence of the steel being worked. After perhaps 20 minutes, you test the edge carefully with your thumb, feeling for the particular sharpness that indicates the work is done. The blade is sharp now, sharp enough to shave the hair from your arm if needed, and you're satisfied. You clean the knife and the whetstone, wiping both with a cloth, then oil the blade lightly to prevent rust. The knife goes back into its sheath, which hangs from your belt. The whetstone goes back to its place on the shelf. Outside, the wind has steadied into a constant presence, neither growing nor diminishing, but maintaining a steady pressure against the cabin. You can hear it in the chimney, a low moaning sound as air moves past the opening, as the draft pulls smoke upward and away. The sound is not threatening, just present, a reminder of the larger forces at work in the winter landscape. You check the time by the simple method of looking at the candle on the table. You lit it at dusk, and it has burned down perhaps 3 inches. This means it's been dark for about 3 hours, which means it's perhaps 8 o'clock in the evening. Time moves differently here, measured not by clocks, but by the burning of candles, the position of stars if the sky is clear, the feeling in your body that tells you when it's time to sleep. But sleep is still some time away. There are more tasks to attend to, more small jobs that fill the evening hours. You notice that several pelts hanging from the rafters need attention. These are furs you trapped weeks ago. Beaver, marten, a fox, that you've been curing slowly, and they need to be checked to ensure they're drying properly and not developing any mold or damage. You stand and reach up to examine the pelts. The beaver fur is thick and luxurious, the hide flexible and soft. You work it gently between your fingers, feeling for any spots that might be too dry or too damp. any areas where the curing process might need adjustment. The pelt is perfect, drying evenly, the fur maintaining its luster. The marten pelt is smaller, but even more valuable, the fur dark and silky. You check it carefully, running your fingers through the fur, examining the hide. It too is curing well, the leather becoming supple and workable. The fox pelt is beautiful, red-orange fur with white at the throat, thick and warm. You've always admired fox fur, the way it catches light, the warmth it provides. This pelt will fetch a good price when you take your winter's catch to the trading post in spring, or you might keep it for yourself, make it into a hat or mittens. By the firelight, you work oil into each pelt, using rendered fat from a deer you took in autumn. The oil keeps the leather from becoming brittle, helps preserve the fur, aids the curing process. You work it in slowly, massaging it into the hide with your fingers, making sure it penetrates evenly. This work is satisfying in a tactile way. The feel of fur and leather, the smell of the oil, the visible improvement as the pelts become more supple under your hands. These are the fruits of your labor, the product of cold mornings on trap lines, careful skinning and stretching, patient curing. In spring, they will be turned into goods or traded for supplies, completing the cycle of work and reward. When the pelts are oiled, you hang them back in their places and wipe your hands clean with a cloth. Your fingers smell of oil and fur, a smell you've grown to associate with winter evenings, with this particular kind of work. In the still cabin, you notice that your drying gloves are nearly dry now, the leather regaining its flexibility, the fur lining fluffed and soft again. You take them down from the wire and test them, pulling one on. It fits perfectly, warm and dry and comfortable. You set them aside to be fully dry by morning when you'll need them again. The boots, too, are drying well. You check them, pulling out the grass stuffing and replacing it with fresh, dry grass. The interior of each boot is significantly drier than it was an hour ago, and by morning they'll be ready to wear again after a coating of oil to protect the leather. You move to the table and light a second candle from the first. The additional light brightens the cabin, pushing back the shadows slightly. With both candles burning, you have enough light for detailed work, and you decide to spend some time working on a project you've been engaged with for several weeks. From beneath the bed, you pull out a wooden box containing strips of rawhide, tools for leather working, and the partially completed snowshoes you've been making. These snowshoes are important. Your old pair is wearing out, and you'll need good snowshoes for the rest of winter and into spring when the snow will be at its deepest. You spread the materials on the table and examine your progress. The wooden frames are complete, bent from ash wood into the traditional teardrop shape, the ends securely lashed together. Now comes the intricate work of weaving the rawhide netting that will support your weight on the snow. By the firelight, you select a long strip of rawhide and begin to weave it through the frame. The pattern is complex, but traditional, a design that has been used for generations because it works. The diamond weave distributes weight evenly, allows snow to fall through rather than accumulating, provides strength without unnecessary weight. Your fingers work the rawhide through and around the frame, pulling it tight, positioning each strand precisely. The work requires focus and attention, but it's also meditative, allowing your mind to rest while your hands work through the familiar pattern. As you weave, you're aware of the cabin around you, the warmth from the stove, the flickering light of the candles, the sound of wind outside that has become a constant background presence. The contrast between the warm interior and the frozen world outside is profound. Here, inside these log walls, with fire and light and shelter, you are protected. Outside, the temperature is likely well below zero. The wind is sharp and cutting. The darkness is complete. This contrast is something you think about often during winter nights. The thin margin between comfort and cold, between safety and danger. The cabin itself is just wood and clay and stone, but it represents the difference between life and death in this landscape. Every log you cut and placed, every chink you filled with moss and clay, every repair you've made, all of this is what stands between you and the frozen wilderness. You continue weaving, losing yourself in the rhythm of the work. Pull the rawhide through, wrap it around the frame, pull it tight, position the next strand. The pattern grows, diamond by diamond, creating a web that is both beautiful and functional. After perhaps an hour, your eyes grow tired from the close work in candlelight, and you set the snowshoes aside. You've made good progress. One snowshoe is perhaps halfway complete, the other a quarter done. There will be many more evenings of work before they're finished, but there's no rush. The old snowshoes will last a while longer, and the work itself is enjoyable, a good way to pass the evening hours. In the still cabin, you rise and stretch, feeling the stiffness in your back and shoulders from sitting hunched over detailed work. You move to the window and pull back the blanket you hung earlier for insulation. The glass is completely frosted over with ice, the crystals forming intricate patterns in the candlelight. You can see nothing of the outside world, only this wall of ice that speaks to the cold beyond. You let the blanket fall back into place and turn to check the fire again. This is perhaps the 10th time you've checked it this evening, and you'll check it several more times before sleep. The fire is the heart of the cabin, and it must be tended constantly. Opening the stove door, you see that the logs have burned down significantly. The flames are lower now, but the bed of coals is deep and hot, glowing orange and red. You add 2 more pieces of oak, the last fuel before you bank the fire for the night. Banking a fire is an art learned through experience. You want enough fuel to burn through the night, keeping the cabin warm, but not so much that it burns too hot and wastes wood. You want coals that will still be alive in the morning, ready to be coaxed back into flame with fresh kindling. You arrange the 2 pieces of oak carefully, positioning them to burn slowly. Then you shovel ashes from the bottom of the firebox and spread them over the logs, covering them partially. This layer of ash will slow the burning, causing the wood to smolder rather than flame, releasing heat gradually over many hours. You adjust the damper to its night position, allowing just enough air for the fire to breathe, but not enough for it to burn hot. The flames die down almost immediately, replaced by a steady glow of coals beneath their blanket of ash. By the firelight, now dimmer and more subdued, you begin to prepare for sleep. This too is a routine, a series of actions performed in the same order every night. First, you move around the cabin checking things. The door is barred from the inside, a heavy wooden beam set into iron brackets. The windows are shuttered and covered with blankets for insulation. Your rifle hangs loaded above the door, though you've never needed it at night. The animals of these mountains avoid human habitation. You check your supplies, making sure everything is in order. The food stores are well organized on their shelves. The water buckets are full. You filled them this afternoon, and they'll provide water for tomorrow without having to venture out to the spring until the day warms slightly. The candles are accounted for, the precious matches stored safely in their tin box. Everything is as it should be. The cabin is secure, warm, and well supplied. Outside, the wind continues its steady rushing sound, but inside, You are protected. You extinguish one of the candles, pinching the wick carefully, preserving the stub for another night. By the light of the remaining candle, you undress for sleep, removing your outer layers of clothing and hanging them on their pegs. You keep on your wool undergarments for warmth during the night. The fire will burn down, and the cabin will grow colder before morning. The bed is in the corner farthest from the door, positioned to retain the most warmth from the stove. You've built it up over time, adding layer upon layer of insulation. The frame is simple wood, strung with rope to support the mattress, a canvas sack stuffed with dried grass and moss that you gathered in autumn. On top of this are wool blankets, several of them, and over everything, a bearskin you traded for 2 years ago, thick and heavy and wonderfully warm. You slide beneath the layers, feeling the accumulated warmth from the bedding. Your body heat from previous nights has been absorbed by the blankets and skin, and now it radiates back to you. The sensation is deeply comforting, a cocoon of warmth in the cold cabin. In the still cabin, lying in bed, you can hear the night sounds more clearly. The wind outside constant and steady, the occasional crack of a tree in the forest, the wood splitting in extreme cold, the settling of the cabin itself, small creaks and groans as materials contract, and from the stove, the gentle whisper of burning wood, the soft glow of coals visible through the gaps around the door. You lie still, letting your body relax into the bed, feeling the day's work in your muscles, the good tiredness that comes from physical labor, from useful work completed. Your mind begins to drift, thoughts becoming less linear, more dreamlike. You think about tomorrow. There will be wood to cut, water to fetch, meals to prepare. Perhaps you'll check the distant trap lines, or perhaps you'll work on the snowshoes again. The days have a rhythm to them, but also flexibility. You work according to need and weather and inclination. You think about the season. This is late December, and there are many cold months yet to come. January will bring deeper cold. February, the deepest snow. But eventually, imperceptibly at first, the light will begin to return. The sun will climb higher each day. The cold will moderate. Snow will begin to melt in patches. And finally, spring will come, bringing with it new work, new routines, new seasons, but that is far away still. For now, there is only winter, only night, only the present moment of warmth and shelter and rest. By the light of the single candle still burning on the table, you can see the interior of the cabin, the familiar shapes of your possessions, the walls you built with your own hands, the simple space that is your home. Everything is exactly where it should be, organized and maintained and cared for. You reach out from beneath the blankets, the cold air hitting your arm, and pinch out the last candle. Darkness fills the cabin, complete except for the faint glow from the stove. You pull your arm back beneath the warmth of the covers and settle in. In the darkness, in the warmth, you listen to the sounds of the night. Wind in the trees, the stove breathing softly, your own breath, slow and steady. These sounds weave together into a kind of music, the nighttime symphony of a cabin in winter. Sleep comes gradually, stealing over you in waves. You drift, not quite asleep, but no longer fully awake, in that pleasant state between the two. The day's work is done. The cabin is secure. The fire will burn through the night. Tomorrow will bring its own tasks, but they can wait. For now, there is only rest. Outside, the frozen wilderness continues. Miles of snow-covered mountains, forests of ice-laden trees, streams frozen solid, animals huddled in their dens and burrows. The wind blows unceasingly. The temperature drops toward its nightly low. Stars wheel overhead in their ancient patterns. But inside, in your small cabin, warmth and shelter prevail. The fire burns on, tended and banked, glowing in the darkness. The walls hold firm against the cold. The roof sheds snow without breaking, and you, wrapped in layers of wool and fur, drift deeper into sleep, your body resting, your mind at peace. The night stretches ahead, long and dark and cold, but it holds no fear for you. You have prepared for it, planned for it, made provision against it. The cabin will keep you safe. The fire will keep you warm. The supplies will keep you fed. This is the knowledge that allows you to rest, to surrender to sleep without worry. In the deepest part of the night, you sleep soundly, dreamlessly. Your breathing is slow and regular. Your body is motionless beneath the layers. The cabin around you as quiet, except for the occasional pop of the fire, the whisper of wind, the small sounds of wood and metal responding to cold. The fire burns lower, the flames dying to embers, the embers glowing beneath their layer of ash. But the heat continues, radiating from the stove, from the warm mass of the logs that have absorbed the day's heat. The temperature in the cabin drops slowly, but remains comfortable, remaining warm enough for sleep. Hours pass. The wind outside shifts slightly, coming now from the northwest, bringing with it the promise of more cold, perhaps more snow. But this is expected, normal, part of the pattern of winter in the mountains. It changes nothing about the security of the cabin, the adequacy of your preparations. Toward morning, in the hours before dawn, you stir slightly. Some unconscious part of your mind registers that the cabin has grown colder, that the fire needs attention. You emerge from sleep slowly, reluctantly, but knowing what must be done. You push back the layers of blankets just enough to free your arms and upper body. The air's cold against your skin, shocking after the warmth of the bedding. You move quickly, padding across the cold floor in your wool socks to the stove. The embers are still alive, glowing faintly when you open the door. You've done this many times, the revival of a banked fire in the deep of night. You add kindling first, small sticks and shavings of dry pine that catch quickly from the coals. When the kindling flames up, you add larger pieces, then logs of oak to sustain the burn. The fire comes back to life, flames growing, light filling the cabin once more. You stand for a moment warming yourself, waiting for the first rush of heat from the revived fire. When the fire is burning well and the stove beginning to radiate warmth again, you return to bed, pulling the blankets back over yourself, burrowing into the warmth. Sleep claims you again almost immediately. The brief waking was enough to tend the fire, but not enough to fully wake you. You slip back into sleep's deep waters, your body relaxing, your breathing slowing once more. The fire burns on, restored and fed, pushing back the cold. Outside, the night continues its slow progression toward dawn. Inside, all is warm and secure once more. The routine of the night, sleep, wake, tend fire, sleep again, continues as it has for countless nights before, as it will for countless nights to come. This is survival in the frozen mountains. Not dramatic or heroic, but patient and steady and careful. The daily work of maintaining fire and shelter. The nightly routine of banking coals and sleeping warm. The constant attention to small details that together make the difference between comfort and suffering, between safety and risk. You sleep on, your cabin a small point of warmth and light in the vast frozen darkness. The night slowly gives way toward morning. The fire burns, the wind blows, and in your bed, wrapped in wool and fur, you rest, gathering strength for another day in the winter mountains. You lie still beneath layers of wool and fur, watching the last light of day fade from the small window across the cabin. The sky beyond the frosted glass shifts from pale blue to violet, then to a deepening indigo that speaks of the long night ahead. There is no hurry in this transition, no sudden plunge into darkness, only a gradual dimming that seems to slow time itself. The cabin around you has grown quiet with the coming of evening. The tasks of the day are complete. Wood brought in and stacked, water drawn from the spring, the simple meal of the evening consumed and cleared away. Now there is only the waiting, the slow descent into night, the peaceful surrender to rest that comes naturally when the work is done. In the deep silence, you can hear the fire in the stove beginning its evening song. The flames have settled into a lower, steadier burn, no longer the vigorous crackling of afternoon, but a gentler whisper, a soft voice, speaking of warmth and comfort. You added the last logs an hour ago, oak pieces chosen for their slow, even burning, and now they glow with a deep orange light that pulses slightly, like breathing. You shift slightly in the bed, adjusting the layers around you. The mattress beneath is filled with dried grass and moss, gathered during the autumn months when such things were abundant. It has compressed over time into a firm but comfortable support, conforming to the shape of your body. Above this, wool blankets, 3 of them, heavy and tightly woven, create insulation against the cold. And over everything, the bearskin, thick and dense, its weight a comforting presence. The temperature in the cabin is perfect for sleep. Near the stove, the air is quite warm. But here in the corner where the bed stands, it is cooler, neither hot nor cold, but exactly right. Your breath is visible in small clouds when you exhale, but beneath the blankets, your body has created a pocket of warmth that feels safe and protected. As the fire fades to embers, the light in the cabin changes. The bright orange glow dims to a softer red, and shadows deepen in the corners. The familiar shapes of your possessions, the shelves along the wall, the table and chair, the tools hanging from their pegs, become indistinct, merging with the darkness. Only the stove itself remains visible, a rectangular shape outlined in the faint light of the coals within. You watch this transformation peacefully, without any need to rise and add more light. The darkness is welcome, natural, a signal to your body that the day has ended and sleep is near. You have no candles burning now. They were extinguished after the evening meal, their light no longer needed. The glow from the stove is sufficient, a small beacon in the darkness, a reminder that warmth and safety persist even as the light fades. Outside, beyond the walls of the cabin, the winter forest settles into its own evening routine. The wind that blew during the afternoon has calmed completely, leaving an absolute stillness. No branches rustle, no pine needles whisper. The air itself seems to have grown thick and quiet, as though the cold has frozen even sound. In the deep silence, you become aware of subtle sounds you might not notice at other times. The gentle ticking of the stove as metal contracts in cooling, the soft settling of the cabin's logs, adjusting to the temperature change as night deepens. Your own heartbeat, steady and slow, the rhythm of life continuing in the quiet darkness. You close your eyes for a moment, then open them again, watching the play of ember light on the ceiling. The rough-hewn logs above you catch the faint glow and reflect it back in warm tones of amber and shadow. There are patterns in the wood grain, Lines and whirls that you've studied on many nights like this, familiar now as old friends. The bare skin over you is heavy and comforting, its weight like a gentle hand holding you in place, encouraging stillness. The fur is thick and soft against your cheek where it folds near your face, carrying a faint scent of the animal it once was, mixed with wood smoke and the clean smell of cold air. You pull it slightly higher, cocooning yourself more completely, feeling the warmth it traps against your body. As the fire fades further, you think about the forest beyond your walls. Out there, beneath the canopy of snow-laden branches, the land lies in absolute darkness. No moon tonight. You noted its absence at sunset. No stars visible through the thick cloud cover that has moved in during the evening. Only darkness, complete and enveloping, the kind of darkness that exists only in wilderness, far from human lights. In this darkness, the forest creatures are settling as well. Deer are bedded down in thick cover, their bodies pressed together for warmth. Rabbits huddle in burrows beneath the snow, insulated by the very cold that threatens them. Squirrels sleep in tree hollows, curled tight into balls of fur. Even the owls, those hunters of the night, sit quietly in the branches, waiting and watching, but moving little in the extreme cold. You imagine this landscape, the miles of silent forest, the frozen streams with their burden of ice and snow, the mountains rising in darkness against the darker sky. It is a vast and empty world out there, a world that seems to exist without you, independent of human presence or witness. And yet here you are, a small point of consciousness, aware of it all, connected to it through the thin walls of your cabin. The thought is not frightening, but oddly comforting. You are part of this landscape, have become woven into its rhythms over your years here. You know its moods, its seasons, its daily transformations. You have learned to read its signs and respond to its demands. In return, it provides everything you need: shelter, sustenance, solitude, peace. In the deep silence, a sound reaches you from outside. It is very faint, very distant, but unmistakable. The call of a wolf, long and melodious, rising and falling across the miles. The sound carries clearly in the still air, echoing slightly off the mountain slopes. It speaks not of danger, but of wildness, of the untamed world that persists beyond human control. You listen without alarm. The wolves are far away, many miles from your cabin, and they have no interest in approaching human habitation. Their call is simply communication, one pack member to another, a voice in the darkness saying, "I am here, where are you?" The sound continues for a moment, then fades, absorbed by distance and forest and snow. The silence that follows seems even deeper than before. Your ears, having strained to catch the wolf's voice, now register the absolute quiet that has returned. No wind, no rustling, no sound at all except the gentle whisper of the fire and the soft rhythm of your own breathing. You settle deeper into the bedding, adjusting your position slightly to ease a small ache in your shoulder, the result of splitting wood this afternoon. The wool blanket is soft against your skin, worn smooth by use. Your body begins to relax completely, muscles releasing their tension, limbs growing heavy and still. As the fire fades to its lowest point, the temperature in the cabin begins a slow decline. The warmth built up during the day radiates from the log walls, but gradually the cold outside begins to assert itself. You can feel the change, subtle but real. The air against your face grows cooler. Your breath clouds more visibly in the dim light. But beneath the layers, you are perfectly warm. The blankets trap your body heat, creating a microclimate of comfort. Your feet, tucked deep into the bedding, are toasty and relaxed. Your hands resting on your chest are warm where they touch through the wool of your undershirt. Only your face is exposed to the cooling air, and this is pleasant rather than uncomfortable. The contrast between cool air and warm body conducive to deep sleep. The embers in the stove glow steadily, a deep red-orange that seems almost alive. If you watch them carefully, you can see the slow shift and change as ash forms and falls, as the wood continues its gradual transformation from solid matter to heat and light, and ultimately to ash and smoke. The process is hypnotic, endlessly fascinating in its slow inevitability. You think about fire, how central it is to human survival, how much of your daily life revolves around it. The gathering of fuel, the careful building and tending, the constant vigilance to keep it alive. Fire is what allows you to be here in this frozen landscape, surviving and even comfortable in conditions that would otherwise be fatal. It is the difference between civilization and wilderness, between warmth and cold, between life and death. But these thoughts are distant, abstract, requiring an energy you no longer have. Your mind is beginning to drift, thoughts becoming less focused, less linear. Images float through your consciousness without connection, snow falling through darkness, the spring trickling beneath ice, a hawk circling in a pale winter sky. They come and go like dreams, though you are not yet dreaming. In the deep silence, you hear a new sound, so soft at first that you almost miss it. A gentle whisper against the roof, a delicate pattering that could be mistaken for imagination, but it continues, growing slightly more distinct, and you recognize it. Snow beginning to fall. The sound is barely audible, just the lightest touch of snowflakes landing on the bark and sod of the roof above you. Each individual flake is silent, but their accumulated thousands create this whisper, this soft white sound that speaks of winter's ongoing work. You smile slightly, knowing that by morning the world will be transformed again, another layer of white added to what already exists. The snowfall becomes your lullaby, a sound so gentle and peaceful that it seems designed for sleep. You listen to it without trying to listen, simply allowing it to be there, a presence in the darkness, a reminder of the natural world's ceaseless activity. While you rest, while you sleep, the snow will continue to fall, accumulating silently, covering tracks and filling hollows, smoothing the landscape into gentle curves and soft edges. You imagine the flakes as they fall through the darkness above the cabin, drifting down through the black air, touching upon the branches of the pines, settling onto the clearing, adding their infinitesimal weight to the snowpack. Each flake is unique, a small, crystalline miracle of geometry and frozen water, beautiful and temporary and perfect. The falling snow seems to deepen the silence rather than break it. The soft whisper on the roof creates a boundary of sound that makes everything else seem even quieter by comparison. The world contracts to this small space, the cabin, the bed, your body beneath its layers, the gentle sound above. Your eyelids are growing heavy now. Each blink lasts a moment longer, the darkness behind closed eyes more inviting than the dim red glow of the cabin. Your body has achieved complete relaxation, every muscle loose and at ease. Your breathing has slowed to the deep, regular rhythm that precedes sleep. As the fire fades almost to nothing, you watch the embers through half-closed eyes. They pulse gently, the deep red fading to an even deeper shade, almost black, but still holding that inner glow. The wood has been reduced to its essential form now, pure carbon, pure heat, slowly oxidizing in the limited air, releasing the last of its stored energy. In the deep silence beneath the falling snow, you think about nothing in particular. Or rather, your thoughts have become so diffuse, so scattered and dreamlike, that they no longer qualify as thinking. You are simply present, aware of warmth and comfort and safety, aware of the darkness and quiet, aware of sleep approaching like a gentle tide. Your cabin is one small point of warmth in the vast frozen landscape. If you could see from above, from the perspective of a bird or spirit, you would see the dark forest stretching for miles in every direction, the mountains rising in jagged silhouettes against the sky, and somewhere in all that darkness, one tiny structure, one small collection of logs, chinked with moss and clay, one thin thread of smoke rising from a chimney into the falling snow. But you cannot see this, and do not need to. You are inside, warm and safe, surrounded by the fruits of your labor, the tight walls you built, the supplies you laid in, the fire you have tended. Everything you need is here within reach, organized and maintained and cared for. The snow continues its quiet falling. The sound on the roof is steady now, a constant, gentle presence. You can imagine the flakes accumulating on the roof, on the woodshed, on the clearing, on the trees, each one adding to the total, the inches slowly mounting. By morning, there might be 3 inches of new snow, or 6, or even more. It doesn't matter. You have nowhere to be, nothing urgent to do. The snow can fall as it wishes. Your breathing deepens further. The space between each breath lengthens slightly. Your heartbeat slows to its resting rhythm, steady and strong but unhurried. Your body knows what to do, has done this thousands of times. The gradual shutdown of active systems, the conservation of energy, the descent into the restorative state of sleep. The bare skin over you seems to grow heavier, or perhaps you are sinking deeper into the mattress, or perhaps both. The sensation is of being gently pressed down, held in place, encouraged to stillness and rest. The fur is warm where it touches your chin, soft beyond description, a perfect insulation against the cooling air. In the deep silence, you become aware of your own body in a way you rarely are during waking hours. You can feel your heart beating in your chest, the blood moving through your veins, the gentle expansion and contraction of your lungs. You can feel the weight of your limbs, the solidity of bone and muscle, the warmth of flesh. You are alive, functioning perfectly, all systems operating in harmony. This awareness is peaceful rather than distracting. It doesn't keep you awake, but rather helps you relax even more completely, trusting in your body's wisdom, its ability to maintain itself while your conscious mind rests. You don't need to do anything, don't need to control or manage or direct. Everything is happening as it should. The embers in the stove have faded to the faintest glow now, barely visible even when you look directly at them. The cabin is very dark, the darkness soft and comfortable like velvet. You can see almost nothing, just vague shapes, suggestions of furniture and walls, the slightly lighter rectangle of the window where reflected snow glow creates the faintest illumination. This darkness is womb-like, enveloping and protective. There is something primal about it, something that speaks to ancient human needs for shelter and safety. To be warm and dry and protected while the snow falls and the night deepens. This is a fundamental satisfaction, one that reaches back through countless generations to the first humans who learned to make fire and build shelter. You are those humans, you realize in your drowsy state. You are doing what they did, surviving through knowledge and skill and preparation. The tools may be different, the materials more refined, but the essential task is the same. Stay warm, stay dry, stay fed, survive until morning, until spring, until the next season of plenty. But these thoughts are fading now, losing their coherence as sleep approaches. They fragment into images and sensations: warmth, safety, darkness, quiet, the soft sound of falling snow. Your mind is letting go of its grip on consciousness, allowing you to drift into that space between waking and sleeping. As the fire fades to ash and darkness, you feel yourself beginning to float. Not literally, but mentally. A sensation of weightlessness, of drifting free from the constraints of time and place. You are still in your body, still in your bed, still in the cabin, but you are also somewhere else, somewhere soft and formless and peaceful. The snow whispers on above you, patient and eternal. The darkness deepens until it seems complete, absolute. A darkness so total that you cannot tell if your eyes are open or closed. It doesn't matter. There is nothing to see, nothing that requires seeing. There is only the feeling of the bed beneath you, the warmth around you, the gentle pull of sleep. In the deep silence of the winter wilderness, you surrender, not to anything threatening or dangerous, but to rest itself, to the body's need for sleep, to the natural rhythm of days and nights. Your conscious thoughts cease their chatter. Your awareness of the external world fades. You are turning inward now, following the path that leads down into dreams. Your last waking sensation is of the bearskin's weight, the blanket's warmth, and the absolute silence that surrounds the cabin. The snow has already covered the ground outside with fresh whiteness. The trees stand motionless, their branches heavy. The forest extends in all directions, miles of wilderness sleeping beneath the falling snow. And you sleep too, deeply and peacefully. Your breathing so slow and quiet, it barely disturbs the air. Your body rests completely, recuperating from the day's labors, preparing for tomorrow's tasks. But tomorrow is far away, impossibly distant. There is only now, only this moment of perfect rest. The night deepens around the cabin. The snow continues to fall, hour after hour, accumulating in silence. Inside, the embers die down to ash, though enough warmth remains in the stove's iron mass to keep the cabin comfortable through the darkest hours. The temperature drops outside, far below freezing, but inside you are warm and safe. Hours pass unmeasured and unmarked. You sleep without dreaming, or perhaps with dreams so gentle they leave no impression, no memory. Your breathing continues its steady rhythm. Your heart beats on, faithful and tireless. Life continues in its most basic form, the simple persistence of being. Sometime in the deepest part of the night, the snowfall lessens and then stops. The clouds begin to break apart, moving on toward the east. Through the gaps, stars appear. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds, brilliant points of light in the black sky. The temperature drops even further with the clearing of the clouds, but inside the cabin, nothing changes. You sleep on, undisturbed. The stars wheel overhead in their ancient patterns. Orion the hunter strides across the southern sky. The Big Dipper rotates around the North Star. The Milky Way stretches like a river of light from horizon to horizon. All of this happens in silence, in the frozen stillness of the winter night. In the deep silence, a fox crosses the clearing near the cabin, its paws leaving delicate prints in the new snow. It pauses near the door, sniffs the air, then moves on without concern. The scent of human and smoke means nothing threatening to it, just another part of the landscape, acknowledged and ignored. An owl calls from the forest, a soft hooting that carries clearly in the cold air. Another answers from farther away. They are talking to each other, these birds of darkness, claiming territories and seeking mates even in the dead of winter. Their voices are the only sound in the vast quiet, and even they seem hushed, respectful of the sleeping world. You do not hear them. You are too deep in sleep, too far from the surface of consciousness. The sounds exist, the night continues, the world goes on, but you are separate from it now, enclosed in the cocoon of sleep, unreachable and at peace. More hours pass. The stars continue their rotation. The temperature outside reaches its lowest point, perhaps 20 degrees below zero, and holds there, the air still and sharp and clear. Ice crystals form in the air itself, tiny diamonds of frozen moisture that catch the starlight and glitter as they slowly fall. Inside the cabin, the warmth gradually dissipates. The walls, which absorbed heat during the day, slowly release it to the cold outside. The temperature drops degree by degree, but so gradually that it causes no discomfort. Beneath your layers of wool and fur, you remain perfectly warm, your body's heat trapped and held close. The darkness in the cabin is complete now. The last glow of the embers long since faded. There is no light at all inside, only blackness. But outside, the snow reflects the starlight, creating a faint luminescence, a ghostly glow that makes the world visible even without moon or sun. The forest stands in sharp relief, dark trees against white snow, shadows and light in shades of gray and silver. In this landscape you sleep, unaware of its beauty, its silence, its peace. Your sleep is deep and restorative, exactly what your body needs after a day of physical labor in cold air. Your muscles relax completely, releasing their tensions. Your mind wanders through gentle dreams or rests in dreamless void. You will not remember which when morning comes. The night begins its slow transformation toward dawn. The change is imperceptible at first, the stars perhaps slightly less brilliant, the darkness fractionally less deep. But gradually, so gradually that no moment of transition can be identified, the quality of the darkness changes. You sleep on, undisturbed by this subtle shift. Your breathing remains deep and even. Your body stays relaxed and still. There is no reason to wake yet, no signal that sleep is finished. The dawn is still far off, still more promise than reality. In the deep silence before morning, the forest begins to wake. A raven calls, its voice harsh in the quiet. Somewhere, a tree branch, overburdened with snow, releases its load with a soft whump. These sounds are small and far away, barely disturbing the silence that enfolds the cabin. Inside, all remains still. The stove has gone cold, though its iron mass still holds a trace of warmth. The cabin's temperature has dropped to perhaps 40 degrees. Cool, but not cold, especially beneath the layers of your bedding. You shift slightly in your sleep, some unconscious part of you aware of the cooling air, and you pull the bearskin higher around your shoulders. This small movement is automatic, requiring no waking. Your body knows what to do to maintain comfort, to preserve warmth, to ensure continued rest. You settle back into stillness immediately, sleep unbroken, peace undisturbed. The transformation of night to day continues in its patient way. The stars fade slowly, their light overwhelmed by the growing brightness in the east. The sky shifts from black to deep blue, then to a lighter blue, then to pale blue, streaked with pink and gold. The snow catches this changing light, turning from gray to white to shades of rose and amber. But still you sleep, your body knowing that rest is more important than witnessing sunrise, that restoration takes precedence over observation. There will be other sunrises, countless dawns to come. This morning, sleep is what matters most. The sun breaks the horizon somewhere beyond the mountains to the east, though you cannot see it from your cabin. Its light spills across the landscape, transforming everything it touches. The snow blazes white. The trees cast long blue shadows. The air itself seems to brighten, particles of ice crystals catching and reflecting the light. In the deep silence of the cabin, you begin to drift toward waking, not quickly or suddenly, but gradually, naturally, as sleep releases its hold and allows consciousness to return. You are not yet awake, but no longer deeply asleep, hovering in that pleasant space between the two states. Your breathing changes slightly, becoming less deep, less regular. Your eyelids flutter without opening. Your fingers flex gently beneath the blankets. These are the small signs of returning awareness, the body's preparation for the transition back to waking life. But there is no hurry. The night has ended gently, without alarm or disruption. The new day waits patiently outside the cabin walls, ready whenever you are ready for it. For now, you can linger in this peaceful state, not quite sleeping and not quite waking, simply resting in the warmth and comfort and safety of your bed. The bare skin over you is heavy and warm, its fur soft against your skin. The wool blankets beneath it have absorbed your body heat through the night and now radiate it back to you. The mattress has formed to your shape, supporting you perfectly. Every element of your sleeping arrangement works in harmony to provide comfort and rest. You take a deep breath, the first fully conscious breath of the morning, and smell the familiar scents of the cabin: wood smoke and wool, leather and fur, the clean, cold smell of winter air. These scents are home to you, as familiar as your own body, as comforting as a mother's voice. Slowly, so slowly that it seems to take forever, you open your eyes. The cabin is dim with early morning light filtering through the frosted window. You can see the familiar shapes around you. The stove, dark and cold now. The table and chair. The shelves with their organized supplies. Everything exactly as it was when you closed your eyes the night before. You lie still, not yet ready to leave the warmth of the bed, and listen to the morning silence. Outside there are small sounds now. The drip of melting icicles as the sun warms the south side of the cabin, the call of a jay in the forest, the soft settling of snow from a branch. But these sounds seem distant, separate, part of a world you're not quite ready to rejoin. For now, you are content to simply be warm and comfortable, rested and at peace, safe in your small cabin while the winter wilderness stretches for miles in every direction. The night has passed gently, without incident or disturbance. You have slept well and deeply, and now a new day begins. But there is no rush to meet it. The day will wait. The work will wait. Everything can wait while you lie here in the comfort of your bed, enjoying these last moments of rest, this peaceful transition from sleep to waking. In the deep silence of the winter morning, you close your eyes again, not to sleep, but simply to rest a moment longer. The warmth surrounds you, the quiet enfolds you, and in this perfect moment, there is nothing you need, nothing you lack, nothing that requires your attention beyond the simple pleasure of being warm and safe and at rest. You wake to a world transformed by silence. The quality of light seeping through the frosted window tells you that more snow has fallen during the night. Perhaps 6 inches, perhaps more. The air in the cabin is cold, but not bitterly so, and you lie still for a long moment, reluctant to leave the warmth of your bedding. Beneath the layers of wool and fur, your body has created a perfect microclimate of warmth. The bare skin above you is heavy and comforting, its weight like a gentle hand encouraging you to remain still, to rest a while longer. But gradually, consciousness asserts itself, and you know that the day must begin, that the fire must be tended, that the routines of survival must continue. Slowly, you push back the covers and sit up on the edge of the bed. The cold air touches your skin, raising goosebumps along your arms despite the wool undershirt you slept in. Your breath clouds white in the dim light. Your feet find your boots, and you pull them on over the thick wool socks you wore through the night. The cabin floor creaks slightly as you stand and move toward the stove. Through the small gaps around the door, you can see that the fire has died completely during the night. No glow of coals remains. This means the process of rekindling will take longer, will require more attention and care. But you are patient. You have done this countless times before. You open the stove door and examine the interior. Cold ash fills the firebox, the remains of yesterday's burning. You use the small iron shovel to remove most of this ash, dumping it into the metal bucket you keep for this purpose. The ash will be useful later. Mixed with water and lye, it can be used for cleaning or spread on icy patches to provide traction. With the old ash removed, you build the fire from the beginning. First, a small nest of dry grass and wood shavings in the center of the firebox. Then, arranged around this nest, small twigs and splinters of pine, each no thicker than your finger. Over these, slightly larger pieces, and over those, split pieces of pine the size of your wrist. You strike a match, one of the precious few you have carefully rationed, and touch it to the grass. The flame catches immediately, spreading through the dry material, reaching up to ignite the smallest twigs. You watch carefully, adjusting pieces with your fingers when needed, ensuring good airflow, encouraging the flame to grow and spread. In the quiet morning, the fire's crackling is loud and cheerful. The flames grow from tentative flickers to confident burning, consuming the pine with its quick, hot heat. When the fire is well established, you add larger pieces of wood, maple and oak, that will burn longer and more steadily. Slowly, warmth begins to radiate from the stove, pushing back the cold that accumulated during the night. You leave the stove door open for now, allowing maximum airflow, watching the flames dance and grow. The light from the fire brightens the cabin, casting moving shadows on the walls. You stand close, warming your hands, feeling the heat begin to penetrate your clothing and reach your skin. While the cabin warms, you move to the water bucket near the door. As expected, a thick layer of ice has formed on the surface overnight. You break through it with the iron dipper, the ice cracking and fragmenting. Beneath, the water is liquid and cold. So cold it makes your teeth ache when you drink a small amount. You dip out water into the kettle and set it on the stove to heat. Coffee will come soon, that first hot drink of the morning that seems to signal the true beginning of the day. But the water must heat first, and that will take time with the fire still building. You move to the window and use your sleeve to wipe away some of the frost that has accumulated on the inside of the glass. Through the cleared spot, you can see the world outside, transformed as you suspected by new snow. The clearing around the cabin is smooth and unmarked, a perfect expanse of white that glows faintly in the early morning light. The trees beyond are laden with snow, their branches bending under the weight, creating graceful curves against the pale sky. It is beautiful in its simplicity, this winter landscape. No colors except white and the dark green of pine needles, the black of tree trunks. No movement except the occasional fall of snow from an overburdened branch. No sound except the whisper of wind through the forest canopy. So gentle, it barely qualifies as sound at all. You watch for a long moment, standing at the window, feeling the cold radiating from the glass. Somewhere in the forest, a raven calls, a harsh, croaking sound that carries clearly in the still air. You cannot see the bird, but you can imagine it, black against white, perched in the high branches of a pine, surveying its territory. The kettle begins to steam, and you turn back to the stove. The fire is burning well now, hot and steady. You close the stove door partway, adjusting the damper to control the burn rate. The cabin is warming perceptibly. You can feel it in the air, in the way the chill is gradually retreating to the corners and walls. You stand for a moment, simply feeling the warmth spread through the small space, listening to the gentle whisper of the flames. Outside, the winter world continues in its frozen stillness, but here within these log walls, there is comfort and peace. The day stretches ahead with its familiar rhythms: wood to tend, water to carry, simple meals to prepare. But there is no hurry, no urgency. Each task will come in its own time, will be completed with care and attention, and then the next will follow. You pour yourself another cup of coffee from the pot on the stove, holding it close, breathing in the rich aroma. The warmth seeps into your hands, into your chest, spreading slowly through your entire body. In the deep silence of the mountain morning, you are exactly where you need to be. The fire burns steady and true. The snow falls soft and silent beyond the window, and you stand in the warmth at peace, ready for whatever the winter day may bring. The cabin holds you gently. The wilderness surrounds you quietly. And in this moment, there is everything you need and nothing more to seek.